Well, it's official. As of today, the season of Advent has begun, which means that now waiting for Christmas is fully legitimate. We can't scoff anymore about the fact that stores put up their decorations before Halloween. Well, we can, but it's a little moot at this point because now it is time. And soon our country will be caught up in one of the largest celebrations in the world. People will be decorating their homes. They will be cutting down trees and then putting them up. They will be sending cards, making cookies, some of them, watching TV specials, throwing parties, all because Christ was born. Yet, despite the preparations costing lots of time and lots of money, I dare say that some of us might miss Christmas this year. Why? Because of the two classic pitfalls. The first amounts to missing Christmas as we really relate to each other. And the other, far more prevalent, amounts to missing Christmas as we relate to Christ. So, first, a word about number one. One of the most poignant Christmas stories I know is entitled The Man Who Missed Christmas. It's about a man named George Mason whose life was centered in his business. He lived alone and took great pride in refusing all social invitations. His brother's family yearly urged him to join them for Christmas dinner, but he thought that the children made way too much noise, and honestly, he had no interest in seeing them. Besides, he didn't feel like buying presents. He never did. And he knew that he couldn't get by without coughing up something for his niece and nephew. And so it was that on that Christmas Eve, after all his employees had left, George went into the office vault to get a little extra cash. But as it happened, soundlessly, on newly oiled hinges, the great door swung shut behind him. The final click of the automatic lock startled him, and he panicked. In desperation, he pounded on the door before he realized that no one could possibly hear him. That's because everyone, including the cleaning woman, had gone home for the holiday. He knew that he could survive the night and consoled himself by thinking that the employees would be arriving early the next morning. He'd just go to sleep. But then he recalled that tomorrow was not a working day. It was Christmas. So he sat down on the floor of the vault to wait out the endless hours. George Mason had totally missed Christmas. And later, when no one was looking, he quietly put up a little unobtrusive sign over the vault which read, "To love people and to be needed somewhere. That is the meaning of Christmas." That story makes me think of those times in my life when I feel as if I'm missing Christmas. I feel like I'm missing Christmas whenever I buy something for someone just for the sake of keeping the status quo. That is, whenever I buy a gift just because it's expected, but it's in actuality neither wanted nor needed. And since I don't like to shop, I can fully relate to the person who wrote, "Christmas is coming in a few weeks, and I have got to think of presents for everybody. Dear me, it is so tedious. Everybody has got everything that can be thought of, and there is a world of money wasted at this time of year in getting things that nobody wants and nobody cares for after they are got." Who said that, Wendy?
Mother Teresa.
No. No, it was Harriet Beecher Stowe. In the year 1850, she wrote those words. Another time I feel like I'm missing Christmas is whenever I end up buying for myself. It's happened, believe me. Here, I know what size, I know what color, I know the style I want. I will buy it for me from you, okay? That way, you won't have to shop and you won't have to go to the bother of returning anything that doesn't work. Has anybody else here ever done that? You're nodding, but you're not raising your hand. That is an observation of Christmas as an exercise in self-indulgence. That's a really good way to miss Christmas. But the second and the more critical way we miss Christmas is as it relates to Christ. Several years ago, I wrote a skit for a worship service, and I entitled it Joe. The setting was in a small Midwestern cafe because I wrote it while I was serving churches in Minnesota. And it featured 5 townspeople who began to laud the town saint, whose name was Joe. One of the men present mentioned that he had just happened to catch wind of the fact that Joe's birthday was on the 20th of December. So someone else got the inspired idea of throwing him a surprise birthday party. Great, says another. I bet he's never had a birthday party in his life. And so they set to organizing it. But since the 20th fell on a Thursday, they planned to have it on Saturday because they thought it would probably be much more practical. They drew up the guest list, and since Joe was a regular at the local nursing home, they decided to have it there. But then on second thought, they thought the quarters would be cramped and undoubtedly a bit depressing for some guests, and so they opted for the American Legion instead. Joe would love it. It had been totally done over since he last saw it, but the only downside was that it wasn't handicapped accessible. Oh well. He loved gospel music, so they were going to get a CD and play it during the party, but then since gospel music isn't for everybody, someone said that he knew someone who could come and sing live for free. He didn't sing gospel, but he sang country western, close enough. The only problem was the singer wouldn't be in town until after Christmas, so the date, bottom line, got moved to sometime in March. Due to the unpredictable weather. Now you laugh, but this is Minnesota. It got moved to March. Bottom line, by the end of the planning session, the party got a complete facelift from where it started to the point where finally, not even Joe was invited. Because, and I quote, my own self, he was never much one for parties in the first place. It is easy to miss the boat, and it is so easy to miss Christmas. How do we make sure that we won't? Every other year, as I've mentioned, we've lit the candles of the Advent wreath, and I've always suggested that they each represent Christ's gifts to us. But this year, I want to suggest that the way not to miss Christmas is to think of the candles not as Christ's gift to us, but as our gifts to Christ. Gifts that Christ would want us to give to him. Gifts like hope given on his behalf. And how do we get hope? Short answer, by trying to give whatever hope we have to someone else. Give it to someone on behalf of Jesus as a gift for him. And since God always writes thank you notes, count on the fact that in time, he will give you hope in return. 4 or 5 years ago, Rob Chamberlain, Marshall's son and Nancy's stepson, returned to Haiti. He had served there as a Peace Corps volunteer, but then he went back as a second-year resident in internal medicine at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston. After having witnessed the toll of a recent cholera outbreak, this is what he wrote. He said, I can rattle off a list of things that are getting better, but right now, I feel sad. I feel overwhelmed and a bit hopeless. But then he says, hopelessness feels like I am betraying the people here. I want to hide it so others don't feel it, because it does nobody any good. So let their hope continue while I try not to stop it. I can't stop hoping because they can't, and so they don't. They continue on, and so did Rob. There is such power that comes in hope. And Christ's power comes to us in hope. Who was it who said, and if you remember this imagery, to me it depicts what hope is all about. Someone said, just as all the water in the ocean cannot sink a single ship unless it gets inside, so all the hopelessness in the world can't take anyone under unless it's allowed to seep into the soul. And as Paul stated in today's text from the book of Romans, it is the Spirit that helps us in our weakness, in our groping for hope. For there are times when we do not know how to pray as we ought or how to hope as we want. But with trust, the Spirit will intercede for us with sighs too deep for words. Be people of hope, remembering that hope that is seen is not hope. For who hopes for what is seen? And what if what we so fervently hope for, what if that doesn't come to pass? Well, then we can remember those divinely inspired words quoted in the movie, The Most Exotic Marigold Hotel. These were the words. Everything will be all right in the end. If it's not all right, then it's not the end. Tagore once wrote, hope is the bird that doesn't see but feels the light and sings even when the dawn is still dark. So may we do the same. Keep hope, and in so doing, together, let us keep Christmas. Amen.